Hey everyone, today I want to talk about how vision and lighting work in DMHub. Different RPG groups have different preferences in terms of how they like vision and lighting to work, so we've tried to come up with a reasonably flexible system that will hopefully suit everybody. So as a dungeon master, you can by default just see the entire map. So the first thing to know is it's very common to want to see what the perspective of a token is of one of the characters. So this is a player character we have, and you can right click on any character and go show token vision. And this shows the vision from their perspective. And so you can see that it shows exactly where they can see, and you can move the character about, and it shows you what they see as they move about. You see our character looking in some windows here. You'll see that the character can no longer see this area, but they have memory of it, so they keep track of what. So that's one basic feature, and we will go over in a moment how to turn that off and on. Having token vision also pretty much puts you in the perspective of the player in terms of controls as well. If you go up to objects and so forth, the controls will mimic what it will be like for the player for the most part. Now, in terms of if you want to control the basic behavior of how token vision, the main way you do this is by going to the map editing panel section, and you want to look for map settings. And this is a panel which controls pretty much all of the vision and lighting settings on your map. It's done per map at the moment, though we may review that and have a way to do it globally in the future. So this isn't strictly vision related, but you can change the color of the grid if you want a grid that looks a different color. But then you can choose the most basic setting, and you can actually play with them while you have token vision set up. Is line of sight just means that obstructions block the vision. So if you turn that off, the player can just see through walls and so forth. You'll see that they still can have a limited vision range, as in here. Uh, but most people want line of sight on, but we just leave it as an option. Especially for world maps and things, sometimes you might want to turn it off. Now, players shared vision. What this means is that if players share vision, then a player gets the vision of themselves and every character which they are in the same party at. You can see the party by if you have everything deselected, you'll see this is the party, the players party, and by default we have the players party and it contains the players. And so in this I have two characters. Now I will say that this is one of the things that will not preview when you go show token vision. So I do not see from this character's perspective. And that's just because it sort of makes the most sense, because when you go like I want to see token vision, you're really saying I want to see from this character's not the whole party, even if you have shared vision. You can select multiple characters and you can go show token vision, and then you can see you'll see that now we can see from her perspective as well. So you can conveniently look from the perspective of multiple characters at the time. I should also note that you can look from a monster's perspective, and that's often a good idea to do that, to just see what's going on from the monster's worldview. Maybe you want to see like get into the monster's head a little bit. And so uh, the the next option is to limit vision range. Many people like to play without vision range being limited, because it makes sense to, because vision isn't really limited in range. You can see to the horizon, just at less and less perceptive ability. And so we'll see that we can see to the very edge of the map. We'll see if we turn this off that this is the edge of the map. And that's good to note that the player can never see beyond the edge of the map. Everything beyond the edge of the map is shown as a black void. And of course, you can expand the map at any moment. Now, the next option is an option that I found that I don't really like this option, but some people really like it, so we include it for completeness, which is limit field of view. Now, if you limit the field of view, what that means is that when you are viewing from the character's perspective, they can only see an arc in front of them, and you can choose the angle of the arc. And there is also this associated setting, full vision radius, which says that usually if you can fully obstruct the field of view, have no full vision radius. But normally, I think that what we show on the map, it usually is based on the player's vision. But I kind of make the assumption that the characters also use their other smells like hearing, touch, smell, whatever, to sort of have an awareness of their like really nearby surroundings. So well, I'm probably not good to speak to this because I don't really use this setting, but you might want to have just a little bit of awareness around them. And if you do want to use this setting, it's important to click allow rotation so they can rotate their character because often if you don't have this setting, you may not want to allow tokens to rotate because often there's no reason to if you don't have facing as a game mechanic. So you will want to turn that on if you wanna. Um, so as you've noticed by now, anything that the character knows has seen before, they have map memory of, and that's shown in this sepia color. And that's what represents that they sort of are remembering what was there when they saw it. You'll see that he doesn't see even his partner down here because you don't see other tokens inside your memory because the tokens might have moved out and you don't know if they're still there. And so we will turn the field of view off. Now, this players have map memory setting is a setting that allows you to turn this off, and you can also clear map memory. So if the player remembers this, and you sometimes have a situation where the player has managed to run through the entire map, or something happened, or you redrew the map since they were last there, and then you just want to clear the map memory. So you can do that at any time, and you can also turn off players have map memory, which I often like to do because I often just tell players they can rely on their own memory. They don't need to use uh, the DMHub's built-in feature for showing that. So this gives you an overview, hopefully, of all of the main settings for basic vision controls. Next, we're going to talk about setting up your map for vision and lighting. And what we're going to do is we will close out this map settings panel. Usually, I just bring it up briefly when I want to configure things for my map, and then I close it. And then we're going to show the floors and layers panel, which I often keep the floors and layers panel set up permanently, and I think we're going to consider making it a default panel that comes up when you start any game. And so with the floors and layers panel, the first thing I want to talk about is the basic lighting system in DM. And so in DMHub, if you start a new map, you get two floors. One is the roof, which is blank and often remains blank, and then you get a basic ground floor, which represents your basic ground where you put your terrain and building. Now, the lighting system in DMHub, there's kind of two main lighting systems. The lighting system that we're using right now is the overworld lighting, which assumes that you're in a typical Earth-like setting and you're above ground, and that means that light is governed by the sun and the moon, and you can control what time of day it is, and that puts nice shadows down, and then when it goes to night, it gets dark, and gets pretty dim. And so this is pretty attractive and is pretty useful for a lot of settings. It is kind of a bit rigid in that it assumes a very Earth-like setting, and it assumes days which are pretty bright, not too overcast, and so on. And in the future, we'll probably allow more settings around this. But for now, for an overworld type setting, this is what you have in terms of the lighting model. Now, the other lighting model is what we call underground lighting. And to make a floor underground, what you do is you simply, this is the ground floor and this shows the ground level. So you simply get the floor and you drag it underneath the ground. And this floor is now considered underground. And because it's underground, the lighting has changed to be this just slider from light to dark, and that's the amount of ambient light that you want in your setting. And so we call this underground, but this is kind of, I guess, a more general lighting system where if you just want to take control of the lighting and do it by placing lights on the map, this is kind of the thing that gives you more control. So you can actually light it up, though it looks very flat. You'll notice there's no shadows from the sun or anything because there's no sun. So this is just assuming a lot of ambient light. Usually you probably want to towards the darker side, and then you want to put your own lights to light it up. And if you put it all the way down here, this is actually pitch black. But we actually don't see ourselves as pitch black, and that's because there's a setting that is on by default, which is GM Dark Vision. And GM Dark Vision makes it so as the game master, you always kind of have dark vision and can see everything, but you can always turn this off. And this shows you that we turn this to black. We'll see there's no ambient light whatsoever. And you can also, if you show token vision, it also turns that setting off. So when we show from our player perspective, we'll see that it I'll comment that even when we were above ground at nighttime, you might have noticed earlier that it didn't look too dark, but it does look significantly darker if you turn the GM dark vision. Now during the as a tip for building maps, your maps will tend to look a lot better if you rely heavily on lighting and shadows. And I'll talk a little bit about how objects can interact with the lighting system. In that any object that has a solid property, you can decide if it blocks light and if it blocks vision. So you'll see this rock does block light, meaning that if we put this light near it, you'll see that it casts a shadow. It does not block vision. And if we set it up to block vision, then we would see that uh, I'll have to light, but we can see that the player cannot see it. Now, another very useful feature, which I really like and use pretty heavily, especially during dungeon exploration, is the player vision overlay. Normally, I have this on by default, and what it gives you is it sort of rather than going show token vision all the time, it just shows you where the players can see. So you can see that these areas with this dithering effect, the players can't see that area everywhere else they can see. And it does this by just calculating the vision of everybody in the player's party. In the future, we may have some configuration so you can change it to choose exactly whose vision it shows, but the player's party is, I think, a pretty good default. So it's really nice for saying like, oh, can they see this goblin? Because it's especially confusing if the players are moving around a corner and you say and you spot the goblin and they're like, what goblin? We don't see a goblin. So this will let you see what they have line of sight to. So next I want to talk about what we call the roof layer, and how often a big problem when making a top-down map is that the players come to a town like with buildings in it. And it actually looks pretty bad when you have houses and the walls block line of sight, and they just see blackness for the tops of the houses. It kind of really ruins the immersion. It doesn't look very good. They can just see the outlines of the walls. And if you want to do a large town, often you would just put like the rooftops of houses that aren't explorable, and while you would populate the houses that are. But then the players will instantly know where they can go by seeing which houses are black like this. So the solution to that is the roof layer, and the way the roof layer works is that anything on the roof layer, the players will draw what is on the roof layer if they can see it in their vision, and if they cannot see what is on the main layer. and that's probably better explained with a demonstration. And we wanna introduce some better roof textures in future, but for now I'm gonna use what we have. So you see I've selected the roof layer, and I will say that when the main reason we don't show the floors and layers panel by default is that it can be a pretty rough edge that you can often end up selecting the wrong layer and then get really confused. So once you start using like different layers, be pretty careful because it can often lead to a lot of confusion about what's happening. Um, so here I'm just drawing a basic pattern on top of this building, and then if I go and select my character, uh, you can see that he can see in the windows, he can see what's there, but he cannot when he sees when he can't see inside. Instead of just showing him a black void, we show him the roof, which kind of reflects what he can really see. And you can see he gets this nice cutaway when he can see in the window. And then when we open a door, he can go inside. And then you'll see that once he's inside, the entire roof disappears, which I think is pretty good. It reflects reality pretty well. Though there is a configuration option which you can change, which I'm going to show you in a moment. Now the so there's a few different options on the roof layer, and in particular, sometimes you want to have trees, or something similar to trees, and you want to make them work a little bit differently to this. Because what you want to do with trees often is you want to have it so that if the player is far away from the tree, they see the treetops, even if they have vision of the ground beneath the treetops. In theory, you still want to show them the treetops, just because it's probably pretty hard to see what's on the ground until they get pretty close. And so that is similar to what we have with the roof layer, but with the roof layer, remember how if they can see what's on the ground, it shows them what's on the ground. It doesn't show them what's on the roof. So the roof layer is purely an aesthetic thing, but it doesn't really restrict information from the players. So what I'm going to show you is that you can configure the settings of your layers by clicking on this on the little gear icon, and it shows us this nice isometric view where it shows us our different layers, and as we mouse over the different layers, they light up and so forth. And so if we go to our roof layer, we can actually see that our roof layer has some different settings. And these settings actually set up pretty well for a roof layer, but what I'm going to show you is I'm actually going to add a new layer, which I'm going to call a canopy layer, which is for a set of tree canopies. I'm going to put it below the roof layer since probably well, it could go above or below, depending on if you think in your map the height of your tree. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get some trees, and we're going to build a little forest uh, over. Let's build it over here. So we're going to build a little forest. Let's turn it's in the way. And we're putting this all in the canopy layer. Now, you probably also would want to get like tree trunks, and you would put them on the ground floor. That's way too big. And to put them, so I'm putting these on the ground floor, beneath my trees. And you'd probably want to change the size of them, so forth. But with our canopy layer, so by default, this is not going to even be a roof layer. So I'm going to say this is a roof layer, which means that the players will see it if it's above the terrain that they cannot see. But if we go back out, we'll see that this is going to have the problem which I described, which uh, is that basically you're basically not going to see your trees in very interesting circumstances. So here he can spot these trees because they're behind the house and he can't spot the ground, which is maybe that's a good use case. But generally, like you might want it so that this tree over here he only sees the tree trunks and he has to come pretty close to be able to see what's there. So the way that you do this is there's a few different settings on the uh, that you can set up on the Canopy layer. So one is called the Vision Multiplier, and what the Vision Multiplier does is that says basically that you can see what's on this roof layer, even if it's outside your normal vision range. And this is only going to be relevant if you are using the limit vision range option. So if I limit the vision range, um, so because I put a multiplier on the canopy layer, you can see that even though my character's vision is limited to this, I can still see these trees in the distance. And that might be a way that you might want to, you might want to represent distance by showing that things that are really tall you can see off in the distance, but other things you can't. But that's probably actually the least interesting setting. Yeah. You also have what's called the cutaway radius, and so that means that that's like the percentage of your vision that we prefer to actually show the treetops instead. So if you set this to like to 50%, that means that if their vision range is 20 tiles, once a tree is 10 tiles away, it will prefer to show the treetop instead of showing the ground. And then there's also a fade on that, which sort of controls how quickly it fades away. And you can also set a minimum opacity, which means that even if you're right under a tree, maybe you still want the tree canopy to have a 10% opacity. So you'll still always see the tops of trees at least a little bit, as long as they're present. So I've configured the settings like this, and then I'm gonna show you what it looks like. So if we go show token vision now, what we'll see is that as we approach the tree, see how we can't see what's under until we get pretty close. And this is probably a good setting for a pretty dense forest. You can also increase this range. So often I'll set it up and then I'll just play with the range a little bit. And if you're going through a forest, probably it's pretty reasonable to have a vision like this. And so here you can, yeah, you can see that your character is going through a forest, and they can only see what's there when they get pretty close. So if you wanted, you could even like hide some monsters under the trees, and then the players, or you could hide a chest under the trees, or anything else you want. It can make give a kind of nice feeling of forest exploration. I think that way of doing vision is probably not for everyone, but we're trying to be as flexible as possible. And you'll see that the roofs are on a completely different layer, so they work with the normal rules that we set up before. The last thing I wanted to say is that something that we're working on next, and one case which we don't currently have good handling for, is we have this. This is an example from a campaign that I'm running, and this is a goblin map, and of like a goblin cave, and so the players start up here in the outside, and then there's like the entry to the goblin cave, and then there's the entryway, and this is meant to be like a slope which goes underground, and now it's underground, and it's meant to be all dark in here. So the problem is that when the players are here outside of the cave, it looks all light and nice, but as soon as they get into the cave, now it's weird because you see the sunlight and the shadows and everything, and it shouldn't be like that. It should be where the floor is underground, and it should look more like this, probably with out our GM dark vision, and with yeah, so it should look like this dark creepy cave that they have to explore, probably with torches. But so we don't currently have a good solution for this. What I actually did when we were playing this map is I actually literally and you can do this, is I had the players outside the cave, and then as soon as they walked inside, I literally just said, okay, like it gets dark now, and you're inside the cave, and I dragged the floor under. But that's not a great solution, especially since they'll have had vision of this whole area with it being outside, and it's pretty weird to transition to suddenly be dark. So what we're working on is to have a system of what I'm calling ramps, where you can define this area as one floor, and inside the cave will be another floor, and there'll be a ramp right here between them, and the players will be able to see down the ramp, and then when they and it will just automatically work, and it will have two levels of darkness, all in what will seem just like one continuous scene to the play. So that's not out yet, but that is what we want to work on, and is hopefully going to be a pretty nice feature once it's done. Thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this, and please feel free to let me know on Discord or in the YouTube comments if you have any more questions.